Hello viewers, thank you for joining me. This was one of those movies that looked like it could be really good at first glance, but then I saw a lot of negative feedback when I started looking into it. I mean, I was planning to watch it regardless of what I heard. When I come across anime at the supermarket for like $10, I don't ask too many questions. I did try to be optimistic though. One of the first things I noticed on the cover of my version of the DVD was the proud declaration in big, bold letters above the title that this movie was from the same producer as Your Name. That's a hard reputation to live up to, so my early suspicions, or hopes I guess, were that maybe people had gone into Fireworks expecting it to be the next Your Name, and it just wasn't that good. Fireworks follows Norimichi, a very ordinary young boy living in this beachside town as he and his friends get ready for the upcoming Fireworks Festival. They have this dumb debate going over whether fireworks are round or flat that kind of serves as a background to the main story. Norimichi and a few of his other friends all have a crush on this girl in their class named Nazuna. She's noticeably subdued that day and tells their teacher that she'll be moving during their summer break. Later, Norimichi and his friend Yusuke run into her while on pool cleaning duty, and she challenges them to a race. Whoever wins gets to be her date to the festival that night. And Yusuke wins that prize, but then doesn't show up to meet her. Norimichi runs into her instead and learns that she was planning to run away that night. They also discuss the mysterious little glass ball she found in the ocean that morning, which she drops when her mother shows up and drags her back home. She makes quite the scene in the process, screaming and begging Norimichi to help her. It made me suspect something might be seriously wrong for a while. Norimichi doesn't know at this point that she's just upset about her mom getting remarried and having to move. He freezes in the moment, and his chance is gone. But afterwards, he throws the ball in frustration, wishing he could have won their race and met up with her earlier so they could have gotten away, and it brings him back in time to that moment where he does win the race and changes the course of his day. I don't really want to get into spoiler territory with this review. Fireworks took its time getting going, so it might feel like I've revealed a lot already, but it was kind of necessary to set up the story. The rest follows pretty much the way you'd expect. Nazuna and Norimichi run away together, and run into other problems that lead to him turning back the clock a few more times before the movie's over. And each time the ball is used, it seems to mess with the universe a little more. Like, their world is a little different each time they go back to it. But I'm not gonna linger on that aspect. I wasn't crazy about that addition to the story, and it felt a little inconsequential at the end of it all. Fireworks was a very pretty movie, visually, and I loved the music. But along those lines of that whole breaking the universe storyline feeling a bit unnecessary, sometimes the animation felt like it was just showing off, adding more of a mystical element than the story really called for, just so we all knew what they could do, and it just felt superfluous to me. Like, it was a beautiful movie anyway, and I wish they'd focused more on the simpler story that's first set up. It's one of those movies where everything's always in motion, and at first that felt a bit over the top to me too, needing to pan over or around literally everything that's going on and get all these weird angles, but it started to feel like a really nice touch once the time travel's been introduced and those ordinary sights start to feel a bit surreal. I especially appreciated it right after the first time Norimichi's gone back, and he's reliving a conversation he had with his friends, before it's really sunk in what happened. But after going to such lengths for the visuals, it kinda sucked that the story and characters never quite made it to the places I wanted them to. None of the characters really impressed me in any way. Yusuke, the best friend, does have a presence here also, but Norimichi and Nazuna are really the only two worth mentioning. Mostly, Norimichi and all his friends just came across as being very ordinary little boys. And I mean, there's something to be said for depicting childhood accurately. There were moments in this movie that made me think of real kids I'd grown up with, but they kind of just miss the age group where I think childhood can be romanticized as this whimsical thing. The kids in this movie are meant to be young teenagers, around 13 or 14, I think. They come across as being very young. There's one scene later on where Nazuna's wondering if she could pass for 16 that helped me narrow it down a bit. So they've moved on to that age where they're starting to feel like mini adults, but don't really have any responsibilities yet and are still very immature. I've found that you tend to get the most frustrating stories out of this age group, where emotions are high and common sense is not abundant. If there's one scene that really portrayed their age well, it's where Nazuna tells Norimichi that she's bringing him along because running away sounds like something kids would do, but eloping is for grown-ups. I did appreciate how real that portrayal felt in this movie, but it was also presented to seem a little whimsical at times, and they just past the point where it doesn't work for me anymore. I think this might be the first movie where I felt like too much of an adult to properly enjoy it at times. It was really hard for me to get into their little runaway scheme, and genuinely frustrating that the movie never quite loops back around to the more serious conflict at its heart. There does come a point where they both accept they're not really going to run away together, that it's not something they could realistically pull off, and it kinda just becomes about making the most of this last night together, but we never get any sort of reunion between Nazuna and her mother to really tie things up. At this point, it's pretty clear that there isn't anything seriously wrong at home. Her new stepdad does seem to be trying his best. Nazuna is just missing her real dad and protesting her mom getting remarried so quickly and having to move. And those are some big life changes, but not the kind of serious injustice that it tends to feel like at that age. I really felt like Fireworks dropped the ball there. I think this movie will speak most to the kids who are the same age as our main characters, and it really could have done with some sort of reassurance at the end that big life changes like the ones Nazuna faced aren't the end of the world, even if it feels that way in the moment. I just didn't feel like it delivered on the life lessons it was building up to. And I can't say I was all that attached to either of our main characters. More than anything else, Fireworks struck me as, the anime version of a John Green story. Ordinary boy meets and falls for exciting but troubled girl and goes on some adventure that probably doesn't go quite the way he expects, but ultimately teaches him some greater life lesson. Minus the delivery on the life lesson in this case. Nothing really endeared me to Nazuna. I can appreciate the things she struggles with here, but she felt a little manipulative to me. She says she wanted Norimichi specifically to be her companion on her last great adventure in this town, but there was nothing to suggest she wouldn't have taken his friend instead. She does still show up with her suitcase in that first timeline, and they don't really know each other. They're classmates in what seems to be a pretty small town, but they're not on speaking terms before this day, and I just can't name a single thing that would have made Norimichi stand out to her from the rest of his friends. I can't even say he comes across as being all that much nicer than the rest, which tends to be a pretty subtle difference anyway. So I really didn't buy the romance this movie was selling. It kind of felt like he was just fulfilling a role in a fantasy for her. But I do realize that a lot of my complaints are subjective things. I didn't love Fireworks, but it wasn't terrible. I don't think I'd even say it was bad. A lot of it just didn't appeal to me. I could see how it could move someone else. I think a lot of the downsides for me had to do with the age of the characters. I just prefer stories about either much younger kids or older teenagers, but I can appreciate that they come across as feeling very realistic, and I think my aunt, who teaches this age group, would probably get a lot more out of it than I did. And it is a very pretty movie, animation and music-wise. So no, it's not on the level of Your Name, but I would say it's worth checking out if it sounds interesting to you. It's certainly a step up from Psychic School Wars, the last movie I reviewed. So a part of me did enjoy this one, just not quite as much as I wanted to. Thank you for watching.